Welcome back. You're watching Urban Debate, and this is our second lead this evening. Less than 24 hours to go before the big SCO summit begins in Uzbekistan. Now, this is where Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping are going to be face-to-face for the first time in 2 years. That is, importantly, the first time since the standoff in eastern Ladakh began. The big question is, will we see the two leaders hold a bilateral or even just an informal meet in Samarkand? Both sides, that is Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping, as I said, are said to be in the same room. But both sides are not saying anything about whether there will be an informal meeting or a bilateral. Neither of the side is saying anything. But given that the disengagement has happened at Gogra Hot Springs and that disengagement is now complete, there has been some chatter around this potential meet. Now, the Indian government has touted the disengagement at Gogra Hot Springs, that is Petrol Point 15, as successful diplomacy. But experts are warning of the dangers of exaggerating what exactly this means to the standoff. Meanwhile, today, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi launched a sharp attack on the centre, accusing the government of giving up 1,000 square kilometres of land to China, and said that the latter, which is China, has rejected India's demand to restore status quo ante. We have a debate coming up. Before that, a quick look at who said what today.
Regarding the question on the border, you've heard me speak many times about the border. I don't think I would say anything new there today, except I would recognize that we've had disengagement at PP15. The disengagement, as I understand, was completed, and that is one problem less on the border.
मोदी जी अपने महिमा मंडन, झूठे महिमा मंडन, झूठी वाहवाही को बटोरने के चक्कर में, सस्ती लोकप्रियता के चक्कर में राष्ट्र हित को ताक पर रखकर बात कर रहे हैं, और चीन उनकी ये कमजोरी समझ गया है। और तो और चीन की स्क्रिप्ट है, पहले अतिक्रमण करो और उसके बाद भारत को पीछे ढकेल दो, उनके गश्त के एरिया को, हमारे गश्त के एरिया को बफर जोन बना दो। चीन एक काम और कर रहा है, वो मोदी जी के उस वक्तव्य को जो उन्होंने जून 2020 में कहा था कोई घुसा हुआ नहीं है, को इस्तेमाल करके कह रहा है कि देखिए आपके प्रधानमंत्री भी ये बात कहते हैं। तो मोदी जी और चीन का पीएलए दोनों एक ही बात कह रहा है।
Okay, our guest this evening, Ambassador Deepak Vora, is joining us, former diplomat. We have Sushant Sareen, who's an advisor at ORF, and there's Ashpreet Kadyal, who is joining us from the Congress Party. A disclosure here, we did invite the BJP on this debate. They declined to come. Sushant, I'm just going to come here to begin with on the point that the Congress Party was making in their press conference today, essentially saying that the buffer zones that have been created, whether it is in Gogra Hot Springs, whether it is in Galwan, whether it is in Pangong So North and South, are on Indian land, the land that traditionally India used to patrol. Is that factually correct? Is the Congress correct there?
Yes and no. Yes, to the extent that the Chinese have been on Indian land since the 50s. All of Aksai chain is technically Indian. The Chinese have been there, and the Chinese have been encroaching those territories as late as, in fact, 2013. When they came into large areas of Demchok and earlier even in Depsang Plains and some of the other areas. So technically, yes, the Chinese are on Indian soil. But I think where I would tend to agree with what the Congress Party is saying, that business of creating buffer zones is not an ideal solution. It does lead to a disengagement. It does lead to lowering of tensions. But at the same time, the fact that you made these buffer zones and areas where you were earlier able to go up to and patrol, you're not going to be able to do anymore because they are buffer zones. So I think that is something which we need a lot more clarity on than what has come out in the public domain so far. I'm not privy to any information of what exactly has been worked out. But until I hear something else, I think I would have certain reservations over this whole buffer zone policy of the government.
Ashpreet, I'm trying to understand here. The Prime Minister in the next 24 hours is headed, for the SCO summit. Why is Rahul Gandhi speaking about the standoff, the Chinese standoff, right now? Many people will say this is to vitiate the atmosphere before he goes, to push the BJP in a corner. Ashpreet, you're on mute. You'll need to unmute yourself. Oh, Ashpreet, can you hear me? If you can hear me, please unmute yourself. Okay, I think we are having, I think there is some issue there. So my producer is just telling me very quickly in my ear that we'll try and fix Ashpreet's audio there. Deepak Voraji, I see you smiling. But let me ask you this question before, I can ask the political question to the person representing a political party. To you, I want to ask this. Do you see a pull aside happening or a bilateral happening with China, with Xi Jinping at Samarkand?
Thank you very much, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, sir.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be with you, to learn from you. You are, by the way, one of the best in the country as an anchor person. And I also learned from the other colleagues that I'm too old to be insincere. So I say what I mean and I mean what I say. And I also learned from the other colleagues.
That you watch us. Thank you very much. Go
I'm
ahead,
71 years young. By the way, 6 hours ago, I landed from New York. So if I fall asleep during this interaction, please wake me up, scream and yell.
I hope not. We'll ensure it's not as boring as you're anticipating it to be.
Well, when you're around, you'll never be boring. Ma'am, now the question you've asked is, will a bilateral meeting take place? There's something that I learned in economics when I was in St. Stephen's College. It's called the law of diminishing returns. You can have a bilateral summit every week. Where does that lead you? You talk about talks, and you talk about talks. Where is the trust? Where is the ground level work that has been done by people who prepare for the summits? There's a character called, he looks very constipated all the time. I think he's the foreign minister of China. I start laughing when I see this fellow. He shows up unannounced in Delhi in March and says, okay, I'm here. So we said, so? Well, let's forget about the border and let's build on other areas. We said, buddy, let's talk about the border. He said, no, we are such great countries. There's a border is a minor issue. We said, then solve it. The fellow had egg all over his face. He goes back to his country, and then in Mandarin, they publish something which says that, India is being unreasonable. Look, we are such wonderful people. We are prepared to discuss everything as long as the discussion is in China's favor. What is this? These guys can't be trusted. Ma'am, let me just put it across to you very bluntly. And I hope that the Chinese are watching, at least, I don't know if your channel is watched there. China has a very severe problem of anger management and ego. The anger management is, I can't tolerate a contrarian point of view. If I say ping pong, whatever his name is, he's God, everybody should agree. 8 billion people should say, yes, he's God. And if you disagree, well, I'll do this, that, and the other. And then the ego. And I'm the greatest, I'm the best, I'm invincible. You guys can't do anything, you can't stand before me. But today what we are seeing, why does he want to meet the Prime Minister? They wanted the Prime Minister to go when this Wang fellow came. They wanted Prime Minister to go for the summit of the countries that make construction material. What's it called, ma'am? BRICS, sorry.
BRICS.
They make construction stuff, right? So they wanted him there for the summit. Now, Brazil's fellow went, the Russian chap went, and the South African fellow went. But our Prime Minister, what dignity this man has, he went virtually. What ping pong is scared of is in Samarkand, he will be across the table from the Prime Minister. By the way, Ping Ping is already in Samarkand. It's his coming out party after 3 years. He's already there. And now when the Prime Minister goes, they sit across. I've attended any number of these summits. They may not have a bilateral. I hope they don't. Because again, I'm not, compromising any government secrets. I've been 50 years in diplomacy, so we're very careful about what we say. The Galwan standoff, we exposed the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, as a paper tiger. Now, if the Prime Minister declines to have a bilateral, we'll expose ping pong as a paper coward. Nobody listens to it. Economically, we've already done what we could. Ma'am, do you know the one country that is being hurt most by the Make in India thing, the Atmanirbhar Bharat policy? It's China. Because what we are now trying, if you look at what we are trying to produce, it's all the stuff, I wanted to use a stronger word, SH1T, that we were importing from China. United States, they've said that now they have this thing, something that you eat, the chips, creating some kind of good atmosphere for making microchips. Samsung has just said that we have inaugurated the largest microchip factory ever in human history in South Korea. The second largest, do you know where that will be? In India. I'm only quoting what they have said. Okay. We are doing The Americans are doing it everywhere. So China is going to hurt economically.
Okay, so you're saying essentially, Mr. Vora, absolutely no point meeting. Even if they offer a meeting, India should decline it. Sushant Sareen?
A meeting to discuss what? That whether
Correct.
Mr. Modi eats vegetable noodles or not? What do you want to discuss? I've sat through any number of these, ma'am, in my career as an ambassador. When there is something to discuss at that level, which cannot be discussed at the ambassador's level or the minister's level, then you elevate.
Sushant Sareen, what is there to discuss? You know, we are celebrating this disengagement. Chalo, Gogra Hot Springs maybe ho gaya, Galwan has happened, Pangong So has happened, etc. But we know that the problem is nowhere near sorted. And as far as we know, it will probably not be sorted in our lifetimes. China has absolutely refused to go back to status quo ante. So is there anything we can talk to China about at all? Or is that not how two mature countries who happen to be neighbors behave?
No, I think, look, I don't know whether there'll be a meeting or not. What's come out in the public domain, I think the Prime Minister is just going to have 3 meetings, at least the official bilaterals. Now, if there's some pull aside or something like that, then who knows? The Prime Minister is also going only for about 30 odd hours in Samarkand. And about 7-8 hours of that, he'll be sleeping out there because he has to spend the night there. So I'm not entirely sure whether there will be any kind of a meeting. On the other hand, I think, yes, the border question is extremely important. And it's an issue from the Indian side that we have continued to press, during every dialogue. What the ambassador was saying is right, that every time the Chinese come, they pretend that this border issue really doesn't count for much. And I think there's a pushback from the Indian side that until and unless you sort out this border issue, everything else, remains unstuck. You simply cannot develop the kind of trust and confidence in each other and move on. So I think we have continued to plug that line. We are continuing to push that line. And if at all there is a meeting between the Prime Minister and the Chinese President, I think the Prime Minister will continue to push that particular line. It's very important to let the Chinese know that there are certain red lines of ours which we are not going to relent on. But having said that, there would be a number of other issues also on which I think, look, there are countries like Pakistan you can ignore. They bring to the table, their only value is nuisance value, right? With the Chinese, there is something much more than that. Really ignore a country like China. To be realistic enough, you have the domain of realism. So yes, you will have to keep lines of communication open. You will have some engagement with them. Of course, that does not mean that you have an engagement with them on Chinese terms. And to force us to do that. And as the ambassador, the Prime Minister has very often refused to go or, decided to go virtual on summits and stuff like that. So he's done that.
Yeah.
So I think if they meet, heavens are not going to fall. I think it's very important that we keep pushing our red lines and we keep pushing our core interests as far as the Chinese are concerned. So that, you can just simply distract India by talking about this nonsense that, we are 2 big countries, we have to talk about everything else, but not talk about the real problem between the 2 countries. So we have this problem.
Okay, Ashpreet, you're coming in here. Unfortunately, you're late into the debate. I don't have too much time here, but here's the question. The Prime Minister is headed to the SCO. We've already talked about that. Why put him in a corner on a day like this, 24 hours before he's to leave?
Are we putting him in a corner, or has his actions put him in a corner? I think everybody knows the answer to that. Number 2, the BJP hasn't sent a spokesperson. This speaks volumes about the seriousness over this issue. Number 3, has China till date even confirmed that Xi Jinping would even be meeting with Mr. Modi? Number 4.
Neither is India. And that meeting may not happen at all, given the frosty relations between the 2 countries.
So why do meets happen? To achieve something, to get something out of it. And now the questions to the BJP are, if somebody of the BJP is hearing, they might want to answer if there comes a day. Number 1, China has refused to restore the status quo of April 2020. Number 2, 1,000 square kilometers of India's territory has already been compromised and has been encroached upon. Number 4, how does the government of India, Mr. Modi propose that we retrieve that territory that has been taken away from us? It is our land that's been taken away. And number 5, to have a solution, to have way forward, you need to admit there is a problem in the first place. And if you remember, back in the day when the intrusion had first happened, the foreign minister allegedly said that the intrusion has happened. The foreign ministry spokesperson also gave a statement. And then 2 days after, there was an all India political parties meet that was called on. Okay. So there, Mr. Modi says that no intrusion has happened at all whatsoever. He denied it completely. So, how do we expect a solution when these kind of things are happening,
I don't think anyone can deny what has happened in Eastern Ladakh. We've seen how things have played out in the last 2.5 years. And I don't think anyone can deny that there has been intrusions. I don't think anyone can deny that the Chinese are sitting on our land. The way things are in Eastern Ladakh, it's not an ideal situation. Unfortunately, this is how it's going to be for a very, very, very long time. Before Ambassador Vora falls asleep, I think we'll wrap the show. Ambassador Vora?
I just simply wanted to say, ma'am, that Mr. Sareen put it across brilliantly. His analysis is spot on. You're outstanding, sir. Please accept my compliments.
Thank you.
As far as the Chinese are concerned, in 1962, ma'am, I was orphaned. He was commanding First Sikh. They captured him and they shot him in cold blood. I don't like these, whatever term I can use for these fellows. Don't trust them. Nobody in the world trusts them. So therefore, meeting ping pong is not going to yield anything.
All right. We'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much. We don't even know if a bilateral is going to happen, but there has been some chatter around it. Possibly that meeting actually may not just happen. Ambassador Deepak Vora, thank you very much for your time. Sushant Sareen, thank you. And Ashpreet Kardial, thank you very much for joining us as well. With that, it's a wrap on Urban Debate. Thanks everyone for watching.